Long-term care is one of the biggest threats to a financial plan. Most people think this is a dollars and cents issue, and it is, but it's far more than that. We would argue that the family impact of long-term care is far more important. Today, in our talk, we're going to talk about you thinking differently about long-term care and how wealthy families think about long-term care, because it's not just about the wealth, it's more importantly about your family. So as financial professionals, we've seen case after case of clients getting old and losing memories, and it's a very difficult time for people.
Well, if you live long enough, you're going to become frail, and you're not going to be able to fend for yourself. It's inevitable. And people are living longer lives and aren't dying of acute things like they used to. So they're dying of old age. And old age is a difficult process to endure and to pay for.
You know, what people don't realize is the destruction to families that ensues. It's not just the wealth. Obviously, it's a very expensive time of life, but it's the family impact and the caregiver and the impact on the caregiver or caregivers and then the related family.
We've seen it tear families completely apart at the seams.
And we're going to talk about that as we go through this. But that's what we want to stress on, because that's what's going to motivate all of you to start thinking about a long-term plan.
And thinking differently.
You know, we've watched families that have prepared, and we've watched families who haven't prepared. Most times, and if you talk to the elder care attorneys, they'll tell you, you should have called me 5 years ago. You should have called me 3 years ago. Sometimes it's too late. So failing to plan is planning to fail. And we're here to talk today about options and some basic things to give you better questions to ask.
So a good place to start is, what is long-term care?
So long-term care, let's break that down. So we have acute care. I fall down, I break my wrist, I go to the doctor, he puts it in a cast for 6 weeks.
And what pays for that?
And health insurance or Medicare. But that's an acute, that's a problem that's going to get better. What we're talking about is dementia, physical disabilities.
We refer to that as custodial care. Custodial care, by definition, you've been deemed to not be able to get better.
And this custodial care isn't covered by Medicare or health insurance. I think most families think there are three options. One is, I'm going to rely on government assistance or health insurance, and that the chances of that probably aren't that good, and you don't want to have that as an option. Next one is to self-insure, right? I'm just going to pay for it as I go, and there are other problems. Again, not just a dollars and cents issue. Some clients can handle the money aspect of it, but what about the emotional?
I mean, you hope you don't run
impact?
out of money, and then you don't really think about the consequences to the family.
The third option is just to create a plan for long-term care. So I think it's hidden from most people, or they're unaware of, maybe is a better way of saying it, is that there are planning opportunities. There's some legal structures, there's insurance structures, and we'll talk about that briefly. But we're going to talk also about why we think having one of the kids or the spouse care for them may not be such a good idea.
This video is for educational purposes only. Always consult qualified professionals before making any legal, tax, or investment decisions.
There's an old saying in long-term care. People who care for chronically ill people become chronically ill themselves. We can't stress that enough.
And how many times have we seen that in our practice, where the healthy spouse becomes infirm themselves, or in some cases even predeceases the chronically ill?
You know, I've often told clients, say the husband has dementia and the wife is taking care of him. I said, you know, if something happens to you, the wife, the caregiving spouse, then all hell breaks loose. I mean, then what? Then we've got two people laid up, and we've really got to be, it sounds selfish, but we've got to protect that caregiving spouse or child or niece or nephew or whoever it may be. And I think the other issue is, what if you don't have kids? Who's going to be your advocate in a situation like that?
Yeah, one, you can plan for that and create a plan for an advocate. But if you haven't done that, who's going to step up and take care of you?
Or are the people who may stay up going to say, well, I don't want to spend my inheritance on Aunt Lucy to try to take care of her? Now, you've probably heard lots of statistics. And, 70% of people over 65 need care. We're going to throw those out the window because those really don't matter. What matters is, what does your situation look like? And what are you going to do if you need planning? So let's talk about some of the gaps and the things that people don't realize. So one of them is Medicare, health insurance isn't going to cover a whole lot.
Yeah. So Medicare may cover as much as 20 days.
Cover 20 days in total, and then you would pay copays after that for a period of time.
Right. But the average is 22 days. Those are the numbers. So there's a transition period where a doctor will still feel that you have the ability to get better, and Medicare will pay for the care dispensed during that period of time. But there's a point where the doctor realizes you're not going to get better, and that's where Medicare stops, and then you have to pay it on your own, or if you have a long-term care plan, that's where that process starts to cover those costs.
And that's where you go from acute care to chronic care to custodial care. So another misconception, another gap is that traditional health insurance has big holes in it, probably is going to do it. And we think most families are probably exposed in this area. The solution isn't one strategy. It's what works for your neighbor, your cousin, or your aunt or your uncle may not work for you.
If you have a pension, maybe the solution's a little bit different than you don't, but most people don't have them, so that creates a bigger gap.
But if you have a pension and that pension goes for the cost of care, what is the community spouse? How do they live? So what we want to try to arm you with is a different way of thinking, number one, and number two, some different questions to ask. So let's look at what we're going to call the 4 vital truths of long-term care planning and getting old. Number one, why we think relying on family is a bad idea. Again, people who care for chronically ill become chronically ill themselves. So often it's the spouse that gets thrown into this. One of the spouses gets demented.
And why is that? When we have somebody that's chronically ill, a lot of times they don't know night from day. They don't sleep conventional hours. They need care pretty much all points of the day. A caregiver isn't going to stay healthy if they never get any sleep and their sleep is disrupted. And it can go downhill pretty quickly when you have a scenario like that. And they're not trained to do it either.
Right. Well, and remember, nobody worked 24-hour shifts all their life, or you work 8-hour shifts because that's what the human body can endure. But long-term care is not 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
It's all consuming.
It's 24/7. And what it causes in your family is it causes your family to put their lives aside for your care.
Your goal was to take care of them. Now they have to put their lives aside to take care of you at a huge cost to them.
Yeah, emotional. And again, financial costs aside. So when we look at families, if you've got, say in our family of 4 kids, it's not a shared responsibility. It's not a shared responsibility in our family of 4 kids. Well, the shared responsibility is our sister and Sam's daughter do 97% of the caregiving for our mother. Right? And it tears families apart because I say, you don't know what you're doing. Why are you doing this with her? Why are you doing that with her?
Well, fortunately, we haven't succumbed to that.
Right.
We haven't second-guessed those two. We let them run the show, and they've done a great job. But in a lot of families, that's not the way it works. Right. What I find is the in-laws, the sons-in-laws and the daughters-in-laws, make the snowballs, and then the kids throw them at each other. Well, if you don't like it, why don't you come over and do it? I mean, all this bickering goes back and forth. And at the end of the day, there's families that never speak to each other again after going through this process with one or both of their parents.
Which is almost more the rule than the exception. So let's talk about creating a plan of long-term care. We think it's pretty misunderstood. There's 2 basic types. There is traditional, which is, I think, more prevalent in what people would think of off the top of their head. And you pay it annually. The premiums historically have increased. Why have they increased? Because so many people were living longer and people are using it.
So you pay for it for life. And if you die in your sleep, the money stays with the insurance company.
There's no benefit.
If you don't use it, you lose it, which can be really frustrating to families.
And for some people, it's the right solution. We're not here to tell you one is better than the other. A newer, I would call it newer, a more prevalent approach right now is asset-based long-term care. And with asset-based long-term care, it either comes through an annuity or a life insurance policy. It comes through an insurance company, and you leverage your assets to provide a longer period of long-term care. And if you die without using it, the money goes to whoever you select, your family. In most cases, it could go to the Red Cross too, I suppose. And so you look at that and you say, does that work for me? It's not inexpensive. So It's usually the wealthier end of the spectrum that does it.
Not anything to do with anything long-term care is inexpensive. So we just have to know that going in when we're doing the planning, that this is not going to be an inexpensive outcome.
And I think you assess your situation and you say, does it fit in my situation? And for some people it does, some people it doesn't. You also have to be approved. So if you're already, we used to joke, you're only one doctor's appointment away from uninsurability. So if you've got health conditions, you may in fact not be eligible for a plan of long-term care. There's other things. There's giving your money away. There's irrevocable trust. But the problem today is there's the 60-month look-back period. You have to do your planning 5 years ahead and essentially impoverish yourself. And for some people, that may be okay. But for some people, it may not be. Because where Medicaid is a kind of a sister of Medicare, it's medical assistance for indigent people. So people try to make themselves indigent. None of our clients' goals, nobody's ever come to us and said, hey, would you make me indigent? I'm going to start when I'm 30 and I'm going to retire at 65. Just make me indigent. Again, really difficult situation. There are elder care attorneys. Sometimes there are places you can go. But I think that's an important concept. The next truth is, what about identity and cyber protection? If you're an identity thief, there's really nobody better to take advantage of than the elderly. And we've seen situations. I mean, the healthcare facilities are a great spot if you're an identity theft person to take advantage of people.
Mom has a lot less jewelry now than when she went into her facility. I can tell you that much.
Most insurance doesn't cover it unless you have a specific rider for identity theft or cyber protection. So these are the things we need to think about. Where I think this is the people that are especially susceptible are the people without kids. Sometimes the kids will look at bank statements and try to track where the money is going. I think nieces and nephews less so. So maybe there's different planning tools you have to use for people like that who don't have a fiduciary to look out for them. But there's identity monitoring and cyber insurance that we think are part of the plans. So we look at those truths and we say to ourselves, gosh, hopefully you're looking at this a little bit differently. So Sam, you talked about a client, I think an interesting viewpoint on long-term care.
And this was,
and pay attention, this is really important.
Yeah, this was early on in the long-term care evolution where we even had these tools available. And I had a wealthy client who came to me seeking long-term care insurance. And I said kind of facetiously, I said, with a little leverage, you could buy the nursing home. I'm not sure that you need it. And she said, you don't understand. I don't have children. I have nieces and nephews. And the one thing that I feel that I deserve with all my wealth is to get good care. I'm afraid that they will cheapen my care because every extra dollar they spend on my care is one less dollar that they'll inherit. But what I do know for sure is they'll spend the insurance company's money. And therefore, that insurance company's money will allow me to get good care. And it was a new concept to me. I've used it as an example many, many times. And I've seen it happen in real life where wealthy people's care is cheapened. Sometimes it's by kids because they look at it the same way. Hey, if we don't get mom or dad as good a care, that's more money that we're going to inherit. Yeah, I know it's horrible, but it's the real world and it happens.
Yeah, and we've had elderly clients who we didn't know were demented and be subject to identity theft and fraud. And I think a good example is our family. Our dad was a financial advisor, as you probably already know, and he had the wherewithal to purchase a long-term care insurance policy for each of them. He died without ever using it. Mm-hmm. And our mom's been on claim for some time. Right after our dad died, we said to ourselves, shouldn't we get more? And we were able to get it. Unfortunately, a couple of years later, she needed it. And she, as of the taping of this video, is still on claim. But it's been a godsend because whatever it was that came down the pike in terms of care, just get it done. Make our sister's life easier.
So what it did, it created a currency for our sister to pay for her care and not worry about what it cost. It took that financial burden off the plate because we know that there are many, many other issues she had to deal with that were non-financial, that it was a real unburdening for her to not have to worry how to pay for it. So you create a currency for people to take care of you, essentially.
So what do you do next? I think you have to ask yourself, what's your plan? Calculate the consequences, not just the financial consequences, but the emotional and physical burden it places on your family.
Who's going to take care of me, and what's it going to do to those people's families?
My grandmother-in-law had dementia, and my mother-in-law took care of her. I mean, she was in a facility, but still a big burden. And one of the things when we started handling her money, she said, I want a long-term care policy. So I want the best policy you can get me. And to this day, she has a fantastic long-term care policy.
A lot of people say, I don't want to be a burden to my kids. And the reality is you're going to be a burden to your kids. One way to alleviate the financial burden is to get a good policy and take care of the currency to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. So prioritize what is important to you, what is important to your family, what is important to your caregivers, and then seek professional help, not just a long-term care insurance salesman, but a wealth manager, elder care attorney. You need a team of people to plan for this.
Because it's part of your financial plan, not the financial plan.
And it's just, we need to put the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together to make sure it works for you. So remember, the protection isn't just about you. It's about your family and those you care most about. Who's going to care for them, and what are the consequences they're going to face if you need the care? So ensure that a health crisis, a single health crisis, doesn't destroy your own family. Remember, this isn't about fear. It's about protecting all you've built. And all you've built isn't just the financial castle, it's the family castle too. The good planners don't just hope for the best. They try to protect against the worst.
Because investing is the easy part. It's making it last that gets tricky. Long-term care? Check. But living 10 years longer than planned? That may break your retirement bank. Our next video shows longevity traps and exactly how smart families stay funded past the age of 90. Click to watch now.
Would you like to review your specific situation? Schedule a call below.